Hi, folks. See if we can get this working here. Nice to be here with you all tonight. I don't know if I've ever said anything in 7 minutes, so we're gonna, or six, oh, it's 6, isn't it? So I was asked to come here and talk tonight about architecture, regeneration, and climate change. Oh my. And the way that I'm gonna try to approach that is to probably too rapidly go through too many principles of regeneration and see if I can find my way back to architecture and climate change. Let's go for a ride. Let's see what happens here. But I do need to start with gratitude. What I'm going to share tonight contains a whole lot of content that I frankly didn't create. I collaborated with students and community leaders and world-leading technical experts in design and engineering of various forms. So I don't have time to give them all attribution, but none of this is just mine, is the point. So some of you have probably seen this cartoon at this point to kind of build on what Marcus was saying. I think it's a fun point. What if it's a hoax? What if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing at the climate summit? I actually think that's still kind of inverted. I think we need to burn that candle from the other end, in fact. And actually, all those things and more that are on that gentleman's slide, it's very meta, right? Pointing at a guy, pointing at a slide, is that actually those things, some of them at least, are actually more accessible. They're things you can go to work on tomorrow. Whereas climate change is just so big, it feels out of reach, and turning the light off when you leave the room just doesn't feel like you're doing enough, and it's not. Okay, here come the principles. So get on with it. Do all the shit we know we need to do already. Eat your broccoli, meditate, right, all that kind of thing. But those are metaphors for some of these other things. So I believe, and we've found, that the places that need healing the most are actually also the most fertile soil for the system change that we need to address climate change and so many other issues. So go to work there. But especially us white folks, be careful about how you show up in these places. Real easy to step in it. Been there. And we need to do it with humility and actually seeking the wisdom of the place and its existing community leaders, because they're always there, no matter how abused the place is. A lot of times they're human also. So whether you're talking about a historically abused neighborhood or a forest, I think those sentences are true. Reject self-aggrandizement in lieu of collective genius. In other words, actually collaborate, and not this Lord of the Flies stuff that we all call collaboration, right? Getting together and fighting over your ideas and trying to get your ideas advanced, not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting out of our lanes to advance the collective ideas. And by the way, that feels better also when you're able to associate yourself with the best outcome instead of your outcome. It also feels better. This is a basic capacity that a lot of us don't have that is necessary for the following ones. When we do that, when we actually manage to collaborate with fairly large groups of sharp, caring people, then we can actually confront the complexity. Folks, the complexity is real. So we also need to reject the idea of simple. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Keep it simple, stupid. You gotta start somewhere. I hate these sayings because the world isn't simple. So we need that collaboration to be able to confront the reality of the complexity. So I know this is just mind-blowingly beautiful graphics here. This is my rendition of a city grid. And so what we're actually talking about here is that scales, Goldilocks scales that someone else was referring to earlier actually, that we don't tend to work at, offer more ability for us to meet system needs within a system, but then we can also begin sharing those surpluses across systems. And as we do that, it gets easier for those nodes to prop each other up. Next principle, reject realistic. We need to get past what's realistic to do tomorrow and start doing what must be done. And if we're doing this, confronting complexity with good collaboration, then that actually gets easier and we unlock greater carrying capacities of our system, but also caring capacities of our systems. We get the ability to care about all the different categories that are being discussed tonight. And weird things can happen too when you're creating surpluses of food, energy, and water in a local community-owned block scale system. You end up with money left over to build a little elevator in a system that gives wheelchair access to every existing and new home on the block, for example. Finally, embrace innovation. Once you're able to deal with and work on complexity, pushing much more aggressive goals becomes actually something that pays off much better. So what you find is if you can aggressively pursue innovative ideas in a collaborative team that's actually able to hold complexity, that problems dissolve, as my friend Bill Reed likes to say, instead of those problems persisting with only incremental progress in a problem-solving process. Oh, right, architecture. So we should, how many architects in the room? Just curious. Great, one. This is super relevant. But all service providers, right, need to actually move from client-driven, I think, to client-evoking and client-regenerating. We should be inviting our clients out of their comfort zones and the things that they want to necessarily do to begin with. But we also need to maybe let go of finding that perfect client. And actually, when we can't, we need to become it. Start projects, generate client groups, instead of waiting for the perfect project to come along, make it. And what we find when we do this is we can create proposals and even systems that actually sequester carbon, net sequester carbon, while also creating wealth-generating systems, beauty, surpluses of clean air, surpluses of water, surpluses of clean energy. This is a proposal for a block in one of the most historically abused neighborhoods in Philadelphia. A lot of these ideas we're developing in Philadelphia. I'm going to rip through that because we're not designing to a particular state of a system, but designing to create a state of change with a direction towards health and vitality of living systems. And that's, so again, we're not just breaking this down into little fragments and solving problems within those fragments, but we're creating a system that self-renews, self-directs over time. And as I said, a lot of this leadership thinking in regenerative architecture is occurring in Philadelphia, but one of the furthest along examples of this is right down the street, a few blocks. I always mess up cardinal directions. I grew up here, so I didn't know them when I grew up here. But Project Thrive, which down King Street, go farther down King Street a few blocks, and there's a project we're developing called Project Thrive, which some of you already know about and better known as the Rambo Land Project. That house right there is projected to produce 10 times as much energy as it uses, collect all the rainwater that falls on it, clean it, utilize it in a farming system that nets $100,000 a year, all within a project led by a man named Ron Rambo, who has cerebral palsy, as a demonstration project for better accessibility and social equity. All right, that's more than my time. Thank you all so much.